Hey, it's Aaron. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how you can get the most out of using dumbbells. So this video is going to be really good for you if you're training in a garage gym or you're training at home and you only have a few pairs of dumbbells at the moment, or even if you're training at the gym and you've got access to a lot of dumbbells and a lot of equipment, this is still going to be really helpful for you if you want to get more out of the training that you're doing. So one of the biggest ways that you're going to get more bang from your buck when you're using any type of weight is to chase small progressions. And these small progressions can be things like changes in the sets, the reps, the weight, all these little things. But as long as we're changing things in a small way, but consistently, that's where we're going to see the progress. People stop making progress when they stop chasing these progressions. So whichever method that you choose, one thing to realize is all we're really doing is applying stress to the body. Your body then adapts to that stress and grows stronger. And then all we're doing is repeating the process over and over again. There's no right or wrong method here. You can pick one and start with that, try that out for a while, and then add another one, or you can change things up as you go. So let's jump into some strategies that you can use. One of the first methods we're going to look at is progressions in volume over time. So an easy way to do this is to use rep ranges with your training and progressing the reps and the sets as you go. On certain exercises, you're aiming for specific rep ranges. So it could be between 6 to 8 reps, it could be 8 to 10, or 10 to 12. Obviously, there's more rep ranges. Those are just some examples that you can use. And the big driving force behind doing this is that you're progressing the amount of work that you're doing over time, aka the stress that you're placing on your body, which then it recovers from, it gets used to, and then you repeat the process. How heavy the dumbbells that you've got at the moment feel to you on the given exercise is going to dictate which rep range you're going to start with and you're going to use. And if you can do more than 20 good reps on a given exercise with the weights that you've got, chances are that weight is simply just too light for you and you're going to actually need something a little bit heavier for the exercise that you've chosen. Let's just say that you do have a weight that's reasonably challenging for you for about 8 reps. How would that look in the coming weeks? What would you do using that same weight that you do have, and how would you progress that? Let's take a look at the whiteboard. I've got an example for you. What I've got written up here is some simple progressions using this method by increasing the reps and then the sets. And I've given you 8 weeks of progressions here so you can see what this looks like so that you can apply it for yourself. So let's just say, let's take an example. We'll say it's dumbbell bench press. Let's say on your first week, you're aiming for 3 sets of 8, which will give you a total of 24 reps. If that's a challenge for you in the first week, that's spot on. Then the next week, what you're going to try and do is aim for 3 sets of 9, which is going to give you 27 total reps. And over time, you're basically just increasing the reps that you're doing with each set, which gives you a higher total. So we see the increase in volume week to week. Once we hit about week 5, that's where we start to add another set. Okay, so we've gone from 3 sets of 8 all the way through to 3 sets of 12. Now we kind of reset things a little bit and we simply add another set. So we've got 4 sets of 8, which will bring you to 32 total reps. It's also a slight deload at this point. If we go back to the week before, we've hit 36. Now we've hit 32. It's not a huge deload, but it's just enough to give you a little bit of recovery before you keep building on. And then we progress it exactly the same way. We add another rep to each set. We get 4 sets of 9, 36. Right through to week 8, we go 4 sets of 12, and we've got 48 total reps. So you can see in 8 weeks, we've doubled the amount of volume that we're doing. Okay, so our body then has to respond to that. It has to get stronger. We have to grow muscle tissue to keep up with the demand. Once you reach this point, a number of different things you can do here. What I would do is either try to increase the weight and then reset back. So you'd build up again using that weight. If that's not possible, you could look at incorporating one of the other methods that we're going to be talking about. You can change the exercise. There's a number of different things you can do at this point, but for the majority of people, this is going to get you a long, long way. Just following really simple progressions, just adding 1 rep each week to each set. And if you get to a week, let's say week 4, 3 sets of 12, if you can't get that, all I would simply do is just give it another week. And then the next week you come in and you aim for 3 sets of 12, and you keep going until you can hit that. All right, most people can get pretty far with doing it that way, and they can sort of keep making progress. Eventually that's not going to keep working. You're going to sort of stall out, but there's many different things we can do at that point. That's just one example of a really simple way to progress the volume over time. That's probably the easiest go-to, given if you've only got one set of dumbbells, and it's kind of in a range where it is a bit challenging, but it's also maybe something that's comfortable for you to do. That's an easy way to progress that over time. Let's take a look at another method. The next method that we're going to take a look at is adjusting the tempo, so the speed at which you're lifting the weight, particularly on the lowering phase, the eccentric portion of the movement. Lifting the weight at normal speed and then slowing things down when you're lowering the weight, you're basically increasing the time under tension, so the time that muscle is exposed to the stress, and progressing that over time. And that leads to gains in strength and hypertrophy. The key here is to include those small progressions. So similar to what we did in the previous example, this is just going to be on a much shorter time frame. So we need to change things up a little bit more often. So let's take another look at an example on the board. This time we're just going to use another exercise for an example. Let's just say it's a goblet squat. What we're going to do is we've got 4 weeks here of progressions, and we're going to run that same movement with the same weight. All we're going to change now is the speed at which we're lowering the weight. So week 1, you've got 3 sets of 8 with 2-second lowering. So you're going to take a good 2 seconds to come down on that movement, and you do that across all reps in all sets. Week 2, we do 3 sets of 8 with a 3-second lower. Week 3, 3 sets of 8 with 4 second. And then week 4, we've got 3 sets of 8 with 5 seconds. So all we're doing here is adding 1 second each week to each rep to each set. So we're progressing the time that we're spending under the weight. As you can probably tell, we're keeping the sets exactly the same week to week. All we're changing is the speed at which we're lowering the weight. If you wanted to progress this and use this another way, what you could do is essentially bolt this onto the previous example that we used, and you could follow that same progression. You could go 3 sets of 9. Now you're changing the speed. After 4 weeks, you go 3 sets of 10 and you change the speed again. So it's an easy way to then bolt that on. So you're still using the same weight, but you're changing other parameters so that you can still make progress. As I just mentioned, you can either bolt that onto the previous method that we talked about, or the other alternative at this point is you can change the movements that you're doing or increase the weight that you are using. Next up, we have pre or post fatigue supersets using body weight movements and combining them with strength work that you're using with your dumbbells. And all this simply means is that you're doing one movement. It could be either the dumbbell or the body weight movement. You're doing that first, and then you're following it up with another movement. Depending on the weights you have and also how challenging you find the body weight movements, that's going to determine which order you're going to use. Let's look at some really quick examples so you can get how this all works. Here we have some examples of a post-fatigue superset and a pre-fatigue superset. So in the post-fatigue superset, this is really good if your dumbbells that you've got are on the heavier side or something that you find heavier depending on what the movement is. This is a really good way of doing it. So you'd start out doing dumbbell bench press as an example. You'd go for 8 to 10 heavy reps. Ideally by the 10th rep, it's kind of a struggle for you. Not completely impossible, but you're really having to push to get that last rep out. Straight away, you would then go into something like push-ups to failure. Even if that's only a few reps, like even if you can only get 2 or 3 reps out, that's still really good because it's capitalizing on that fatigue factor and allowing you to get more of a stimulus out of it. So that's a really good way of doing it if your dumbbells are slightly heavier for you. If they're on the lighter side, say for example, we use the same movement, dumbbell bench press, if you can get 8 to 10 reps pretty comfortably, then I would switch over to doing this method. So you're doing a pre-fatigue superset. We're just switching things around. You'd go push-ups 12 to 15 reps, so slightly higher. You're fatiguing the muscle, and then you would go into something like dumbbell bench press, and we'll add a pause at the bottom position. And you're going for 6 to 8 reps. And if we've done this correctly, by 6 to 8 reps, that weight's going to feel pretty heavy and it's going to feel pretty hard for you to do. So that's a really good way of doing it if the weights are slightly lighter. You shouldn't be doing this and feeling like you can keep going. If that's the case, it's probably that the weights are really light for you and that you will need to get heavier weights. But if you're kind of in the middle, if it's somewhat of a struggle, this is a really good option too. You can use this same method with virtually any movements, depending on what you find challenging and what kind of weights that you've got. So here are some quick examples of movements that you can pair together. Some of these might be really easy for you to do, others will be very, very challenging. The first one is dumbbell split squats with bodyweight step-ups. Next, we've got dumbbell goblet squats paired with bodyweight squats. Then we have dumbbell RDLs paired with slider hamstring curls. Dumbbell shoulder press paired with pike push-ups. Dumbbell bent over rows paired with inverted rows. Dumbbell single arm rows paired with pull-ups. Another consideration when using your dumbbells is to think about using full range of motion. There's definitely a time and a place where if you're shooting for higher weights and you want to push a PR, you can cut the range of motion just a little bit short, but it shouldn't be something that you're doing all of the time. This is especially true if you're trying to maximize the effectiveness of the weights that you've got. Making use of that full range of motion is going to be more effective from a growth and strength perspective, but also a mobility perspective as well. So let's take a look at some movements where this is particularly important. First up, we've got split squats. Next, we have goblet squats. Seated dumbbell shoulder press, and dumbbell bench press. There's obviously a lot more movements that this applies to, but these are just some of the ones that I've seen most commonly and the ones that are often the easiest to cut the depth, cut the range of motion on when you could be getting more out of those movements. As you can see, there are many ways that you can get more out of the weights that you do have. You don't always have to have access to a lot of equipment. You can get a lot out of just combining certain movements together. You can apply different principles to it and you can still make progress so that it doesn't feel like you're doing all this work and you've got nothing to show for it, it's not working, and that becomes really frustrating. So that's it for this video. I hope that you learned some things that you can now use for yourself. If you're looking for some help with your own training, or you just simply want a plan to follow where this is all taken care of, that's exactly what I do for my clients who work with me. If that's something that you're interested in, I'll leave a link in the description below that'll give you all the information that you need about how that works. Thanks heaps for watching, and I'll see you next time.